Okay, we are back. It's been a while since I've had time to do any reading, but today I would like to start Chapter 9 from Joseph Campbell's Primitive Mythology in the Masks of God series. And Chapter 9 is entitled Mythological Thresholds of the Paleolithic. Section 1 is the stage of Plesianthropus, roughly 600,000 BC. The quest for Adam, as Herbert Wendt has termed the long search of science for the homeland of the human race, has now led to Africa, and recently with spectacular results. Three types of theory hold the field with regard to the way in which the family tree of our race should be construed. Most of the authorities believe that mankind emerged from the stage of the higher primates along one line of evolution. Those holding this view are known as monophyletists, advocates of one mono line of descent, phyletikos, tribe. A second group, however, polyphyletists, advocates of many poly lines of descent, phyletikoi. Believe that our race is constituted of a number of independently developed strains which, in the course of the millenniums, became fused. And finally, a third group of recent origin dating from circa 1925, which, as far as I know, has not yet received its Greek appellation, stands for the probability of what they term a zone of hominization, that is, a limited yet sufficiently broad area of the Earth's surface, relatively uniform in character, where a large population of closely related individuals, from tertiary species of higher primate, became affected simultaneously by a series of genetic mutations conducing to the appearance of a considerable variety of man-like forms. Both the evidence of modern genetics and the recent discoveries in South and East Africa of an astonishing variety of early man-like creatures, ranging in stature from pygmies, Plesianthropus, to giants, Paranthropus robustus, tend to support this latest view. And so the primates that we have now to accept as our first cousins are the higher apes of Africa, the gorilla and chimpanzee, not the orangutan and gibbon of Southeast Asia, who are more remote from the human line or zone of hominization. There are two amusing reports of the behavior of chimpanzees that seem to me worth noting at this point. They appear in Dr. Wolfgang Kohler's volume on the mentality of apes. Kohler found that chimpanzees would conceive inexplicable attachments for objects of no use to them whatsoever, and carry these for days in a kind of natural pocket between the lower abdomen and upper thigh. An adult female named Chengo became attached in this way to a round stone that had been polished by the sea. On no pretext could you get the stone away, says Kohler, and in the evening the animal took it with it to its room and its nest. Kohler's second observation is of a social nature. Chengo and another chimpanzee named Grande invented a game of spinning round and round like dervishes, which was then taken up by all the rest. Any game of two together, Dr. Kohler writes, was apt to turn into this spinning top play, which appeared to express a climax of friendly and amicable joie de vivre. The resemblance to a human dance became truly striking when the rotations were rapid, or when Chengo, for instance, stretched her arms out horizontally as she spun around. Chengo and Chica, whose favorite fashion during 1916 was the spinning, sometimes combined a forward movement with the rotations, so that they revolved slowly round their own axes and along the playground. The whole group of chimpanzees sometimes combined in more elaborate motion patterns. For instance, two would wrestle and tumble near a post. Soon their movements would become more regular and tend to describe a circle round the post as a center. One after another, the rest of the group approach, join the two, and finally march in an orderly fashion round and round the post. The character of their movements changes. They no longer walk, they trot, and as a rule, with special emphasis on one foot, while the other steps lightly. Thus, a rough approximate rhythm develops, and they tend to keep time with one another. It seems to me extraordinary, Kohler concludes, that there should arise, quite spontaneously among chimpanzees, anything that so strongly resembles the dancing of some primitive tribes. These two notations will suffice to suggest a spiritual plane for the history of our subject lower than which we need not go in imagining the ritual activities of the first societies. The psychological crisis that we have termed seizure is already present, and the joy in group motion patterns that underlies both public ritual and the art of the dance is also in evidence. We note furthermore the surprising detail of the central pole, which in the higher mythologies becomes interpreted as the world-uniting and supporting cosmic tree, world mountain, axis mundi, or sacred sanctuary, to which both the social order and the meditations of the individual are to be directed. And finally, we have that wonderful sense of play, without which no mythological or ritual game of make-believe whatsoever could ever have come into being. One can see already that in play, fascinating new energy evoking stimuli are discovered, which unite groups in the way not of economics but of freely patterned action, that is to say, of art. The observation is worth noting because no actual objects of human art have been found earlier than the Aurignacian period, when the female figurines abruptly appear. The African finds that have most recently stirred the halls of science are very roughly, dated at the commencement of the Pleistocene or Ice Age, circa 600,000 BC. And at the 5th International Congress of Anthropological and Ethnological Sciences, held at the University of Pennsylvania in 1956, Dr. Raymond Dart of Witwatersrand University, Johannesburg, South Africa, showed a convincing series of slides in which the implements of this pre-lithic, pre-Stone Age, culture were illustrated. These include the lower jaws of large antelopes, which had been cut in half and used as saws and knives, gazelle horns, with part of the skull attached, which showed distinct signs of wear and use, possibly as digging tools, and a great number of ape-man palettes with the teeth worn down, human palettes being used to this day as scrapers by some of the natives of the area. But the really sensational slides were those showing a number of baboon and ape-man skulls that had been fractured by the blow of a bludgeon of a certain specific type. All the fractures showed that they had been caused by an instrument having two nubs or processes at the hitting end, and it had required only a little thought on the part of Professor Dart and his collaborators for them to surmise that the probable cause of this double dent was the knob at the end of the leg bone of a gazelle. But apes do not use weapons, ergo the culprit was a man, or at least some kind of proto-man. The animal remains found among the bones of these little fellows of about 600,000 BC have been chiefly antelopes, horses, gazelles, hyenas, and other beasts of the plains. Swift runners, so that the art of the hunt must have been considerably developed. Professor Dart, furthermore, has found abundant evidence of a practice of removing the heads and tails of certain of the animals killed, and suggests that the tails may have been used for signaling in the chase. Perhaps so. But what of the removal of the heads? Were the animals flayed, perhaps, and their whole skins with heads and tails attached, then used in some magical rite to avert the danger of blood revenge? Do we hear an echo at the bottom of the well? That's it for section 1. We'll return with section 2. Thank you.